What's going on, everybody? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm here today to rank the Gotham characters. So, Gotham was a TV show that ran from 2014 to 2019, and I've seen mixed reviews on the show. Some people really love the show, some people really hate it, some people consider the show a joke and an insult to the lore of Batman and the backstory of Gotham City. But I love the show. I thought the show was fantastic. I thought it was a lot of fun. Yes, there are inconsistencies here and there, but a TV show is a TV show and it's meant for entertainment. And if you were entertained, then the show did what it set out to do. I will recommend a reading though, and that is Gotham City Year One. It is written by Tom King, who is a top Batman writer and also has written the Great Mr. Miracle series as well, so I recommend checking that out too. But Gotham City Year One gives you a lot of backstory into the Gotham crime families and gives you a lot of backstory into the origination of the city. So I advise giving that a read too. But I will say Gotham was a really fun show. I enjoyed it. It was only 5 seasons, even though season 5 was relatively short and a bit. It was a bit. I don't want to say underwhelming, but anticlimactic, I think, would be the right word. But it still entertained me, so that was good. But I will say that there are a wide array of characters on Gotham that I think are really good. And today we are going to do a tier ranking of the villains. So there's the S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. So you get what I'm going for. So we're gonna start with the villains, and then eventually maybe we'll do the heroes and see how this video goes. So we're gonna start right away with Oz, aka the Penguin, and he automatically has to go in the S tier. And in my opinion, he is the best character on this show. And that's saying a lot because there are some really, really good characters on Gotham. But this characterization of Oz, who started at the bottom and single-handedly took out the Maronis and took out the Falcones and put himself on the top of Gotham's underworld, makes him a really compelling character. But I love this version because I think there's a bit of comedy with the character, but also seriousness. And when you combine them together, you get a really strong version of the Penguin. And this is actually my favorite live action Penguin. I do love the Colin Farrell Penguin, and obviously Danny DeVito, we all love. But to me, this is the most fleshed out version of the character. And when he got out of Arkham the first time, and he comes out and he looks and he goes, "I'm sane." I think it's the best line in the entire show, and it's only 2 words. But to me, his delivery in this show is incredible, and I can't believe the actor for this did not get an award. It completely boggles my mind because his performance throughout these 5 seasons is astonishing, and like I said, he's the best character in the show, so he's gonna go in S tier. Now we have Fish Mooney. Fish Mooney's a pretty polarizing character because I don't think she's bad, but I don't think she's great either. She was pretty pivotal in the first couple of seasons of Gotham, she being a crime lord, and she was only designed for this show. So I think she was okay. I'm gonna put her at the C tier because I do think she had a purpose, but I don't think she was as impactful as the show probably wanted her to be. Hence why she was written off relatively early. But not a bad character, but at the same time, she kind of just to me was another example of just another crime lord in Gotham that's just trying to make money and try and make fortunes. And to me, that's rather shallow. But at the same time, she wasn't a bad character either. Okay, so scroll down a bit. Now we have Azrael's. We have Galavan. And this wasn't a bad character either. More Phantom-like, in my opinion. The gear suit was really cool. But again, I'll put it. You know what? I'll put Galavan in C category in the C tier because I think this is another mystery, right? And obviously Gotham's filled with mystery, but I found the character a bit shallow. Not bad per se, but I think Tabitha actually had more range, and she was the sister. But Galvan was fine. But to me, he was never he was written like he was a threat, and this is like the literature major me coming out. He was written like a threat, but you never believed that he was a threat, if that makes sense. So that's why I put Galvan in the C tier, because again, the character was fine, but just nothing more than that. Now we have Hugo Strange. This is probably gonna be unpopular, but I'm gonna put him in the S tier. I don't know. Some people might have him in the A tier, some people might have him in the B tier, but I'm gonna put him in the S tier because he was a very pivotal part in the plot lines of this show. And I believe the actor's name is Ben Wong. He was tremendous as Hugo Strange in this. His delivery, his facial expressions, absolutely incredible stuff. I really, really enjoyed Hugo Strange in this. And to me, he's a really underrated Batman villain. And again, Batman has such a huge rogues gallery that it is difficult to give everyone their moment in the spotlight. But I will say that Hugo Strange in Gotham, one of the MVPs of the show, in my opinion. And if you haven't watched Gotham, watch it for Oz and watch it for Hugo Strange, along with another character that I'm going to get to in a few minutes. All right, we also have the Mad Hatter, and I actually liked this Mad Hatter. I thought he brought a lot to the table. I thought, again, he's another underrated Batman villain that I think will get overlooked. But the individual that played the character was super super strong in this, and I'm actually gonna put him in the A tier because I think he was, again, very pivotal and very overlooked, and I think the Mad Hatter's just an underrated Batman rival in general. But I like his scenes, especially too in Arkham, in that dinner scene and all that. Really good stuff. So I am gonna put the Mad Hatter in the A tier. Now we have Jerome. Obviously the Joker, but I really like Jerome in this too. I thought his deliveries were really good, and actually, this is probably going to be unpopular. I know I just accidentally put him in the A tier, but I'm going to put him in the S tier. I really think he was tremendous in this, especially his voice for getting the Joker, this younger version of the Joker, really, really cool. And what I like about Jerome is that he is the encapsulation of one thing, and that is anybody can be the Joker, which is why I don't like when the Joker is given a definitive origin story, because I think anybody can be the Joker on any given day, and I think Jerome is a perfect example of that, and he was a really, really good character. I wish he was in even more episodes of Gotham. Okay, now we have the Sensei or the Shaman, depending on what you want to call him. He was basically the man behind the influence of Ra's al Ghul and trying to get Bruce Wayne to sway over to the dark side. He was actually a pretty underrated character. I'm going to put him in the B category because I do think, again, he was pivotal in the development of Bruce Wayne in this story. And it looked like he had some good messages, but then in the end he was devious, which I think a lot of us knew. But at the same time, I thought the delivery was really well done. So I'm going to put the Shaman or the Sensei in the B category. Now, remember how I said there was another character that will influence how you watch Gotham and why you watch Gotham? He's right here. Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. Man, this was a really good character in this show. In my opinion, the second best character on the show. He's going definitively an S tier, and if you want to get cute with it, I'll put him second right here in the S tier right behind Oz, because this version of Edward Nygma is incredible. And I know Paul Dano is the most recent Riddler in live action, so I think a lot of individuals will have recency bias, and it's not taking anything away from Paul Dano because his version of the Riddler was fantastic. But this version of Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, is probably my favorite that I've seen. I really love it because he's campy but also maniacal, and I think that is the perfect example of the Riddler, where he's not straight up serial killer, but he's campy and looks kind of nerdy and a little bit geeky, but man is he devious. And he has a little bit of a comedic side to him on top of being absolutely ruthless, and I think this version of him is the best. Really, really good stuff here. I love the back and forth relationship that him and Oz have, because you never know whether they love each other, if they're going to kill each other, if they're going to love and kill each other at the same time. It's really, really good. And if you're going to watch Gotham, the main reasons would be for Oz, Hugo Strange, and the Riddler, because Oz and the Riddler, Ed, are in the show from the beginning. So you get to see their journeys throughout the entire 5 seasons and how they develop as individuals. Okay, so now we essentially have the Court of Owls. And I don't know how I feel about the Court of Owls here because I think Catherine Monroe was a good example, but at the same time, like I feel like we could have done even more with the Court of Owls here. I think there could have been even more backstory, especially when you read Scott Snyder's Court of Owls. I think we could have done even more to exploit Gotham's underworld with them, even though they are in full control. But Catherine Monroe, I think she was fine. I'll put her in the C tier, even though the Court of Owls as a collective are an S tier. She was basically just a spokesperson, really, and just somebody who was the public face of the Court of Owls. But yeah, like I found she was serviceable. Now we have Ra's al Ghul, who is deeply affiliated with the Court of Owls in Gotham, and this is not my favorite version of Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul, depending on your pronunciation. But I'll put him in the C tier as well because I think again you could have done so much more with the character. I like the mythos behind the character in the story, but I found the execution could have been a bit stronger. I think we should have had more of an in-depth relationship with him and Bruce, especially with what we know in the comics. But he was fine. Again, C is serviceable, B is good, A is really good, and the S tier is obviously the greatest of all time status. So to me, Ra's al Ghul was serviceable here. Nothing more, nothing less. Now we have Sophia Falcone. Again, I'll put her at the top of C tier, and I'll put Ra's at the top of C tier too, because as we would know in the Penguin TV show that came out a few years ago, that the Kristen Milioti version of Sophia Falcone is the top. Before that, we probably would have went with this incarnation of the character. But she was okay. She was portrayed as a major threat, but to me, she never screamed a major threat, especially after Carmine's passing. But to me, the portrayal seemed a little too innocent, if that makes sense. Like the actress was a little too innocent to really play the character. And what I mean by that is like the inflection of her voice, her tone, the way she did things. She seemed a little more passive rather than not aggressive, but more taking things on the head. So that's what I thought about the character here. Whereas like if you watch in the Penguin, the Kristen Milioti version of Sophia Falcone is I think way more intriguing. But yeah, like she was presented as a threat here, but then she was taken care of to me relatively easily. Like she was always kind of in the middle of things, but never really the centerpiece, even though the writers tried to make her the centerpiece. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you think. But not a bad character, but serviceable. Now we have Professor Pig, aka the Pig. I actually like this character, even though he was basically brought in by Sophia, if I remember correctly, to do some bidding in Gotham. I'm actually gonna put him in the B tier because I think he was a fun character. You know, he was obviously a serial killer, but also he made people pies, as he called them, and then Oz ate one, and Professor Pig was a very grotesque character. But the grotesqueness actually worked here, and I thought it was pretty underrated. I would have actually liked to have seen more of him. I don't think he was in the show long enough, but he was a fun addition. Now we have Poison Ivy. I really liked her in this show. I'm also going to put her in the B category. I think she played a pretty pivotal part. I thought her friendship with Selena Kyle was fantastic. I like the different eras or different incarnations of Poison Ivy as we went on. There were basically 3 of them. And I think the final product was really, really strong. And she presented herself as a major threat in Gotham. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the individual who played the 3rd version of her was also the individual that played Lucy Lane in Smallville. And she's a tremendous actress. I thought she was really good in Smallville too. So really, really good character, B category. Now we have Jeremiah. And Jeremiah seemed very innocent at the beginning, even though he did have some questionable motives. But then his paranoia eventually became his greatest strength, and he became the Joker out of that. And it goes back to my argument that anybody can be the Joker on any given day once they have that one bad day. I'm going to put Jeremiah in the A category. I thought this was a really good incarnation of the Joker, but I do think Jerome was a bit stronger. But these are two different versions of the Joker, right? You have one that's a little more cunning. You have another one that's a little just more unstable. I would have Jerome be the more kind of blindly mad, unstable version of the Joker, whereas the Jeremiah version is a little more has a little more madness to his method and method to his madness. But these are really strong portrayals. I just prefer the Jerome version a little bit more. But Jeremiah, really, really solid part of the show, goes in the A category. Now we have Bane. Uh, I wanna love this version of Bane a bit more, but to me he wasn't in the show long enough to really do much more. He kind of shows up near the end. I'll put him in the C category because I do think the end battles in season 5 are really, really good. I just wish we would have had more of Bane in the show. So it's hard for me to fully rate him as a character because Bane is one of my favorite characters ever in Batman and just one of my favorite DC characters of all time. But I have to put him in C category, especially because when you look at the Tom Hardy version of Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, it was really, really good. So I'm still going to put him in the C category because he was serviceable. Then we have Nissa Al Ghul. I think she was fine. She again kind of like Sophia and kind of like honestly kind of like Galvan. She was just presented more as an empty threat. She was just there to be the villain 1.0, and I don't think she did much more than that. I thought the actress did a really good job portraying the character. I just don't think that she was anything more than an empty threat. And I think that happened a lot in Gotham, where the characters they were good, but they were just a lot of them were empty threats, and you kind of knew the result beforehand. And I think that kind of took away from the show a bit. But still, the show was a barnstormer. It was fantastic, and I would easily rewatch the show again. But yeah, like a lot of the characters, they're just there. They're good, but they're middling. Whereas like Oz and Ed and Hugo Strange and you know, just those kind of characters, they go places that the other characters don't go. And I get it with Ed and Oz that they have the whole show to do that, but I think the Gotham writers knew what they were doing when it came to Hugo Strange, because he was in sporadically, he wasn't always a regular, but when he showed up, it meant something. And I think a lot of these other characters, when they were just there for the sake of being there, and I think that took away a little bit. However, this show is amazing, and I would still recommend watching this show. I advise you watch this show, especially if you're a DC fan. But let me know what you think if you've watched Gotham. Did I get these correct, or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments, because I'm going to be doing more of these tier rankings soon. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and I think we can get to 1,000. So we're on the road to 1,000. Please hit the subscribe button. I'll be back with more soon.